Hello, my name is Stanley Heller. Welcome to The Struggle. The Struggle is shown on 20 cable stations from Vermont to New York City and 24/7 on the internet at thestruggle.org. Most of you will be seeing this program in the first couple weeks of June. On June 8th, 1967, a U.S. ship, the USS Liberty, was attacked and severely damaged by elements of the Israeli military forces. 34 U.S. sailors were killed, 134 injured, and the ship, the most advanced intelligence ship in the world at the time, was almost sunk by the Israelis. All this happened despite the fact that it was a clear day with a large U.S. flag flying over the Liberty, and despite the fact that Israeli planes had circled the Liberty sometime earlier in the day for several hours. There's never been an investigation by the U.S. government into the real causes of the attack. Instead, presidents from Lyndon Johnson to George Bush have accepted the preposterous Israeli explanation that it was all an accident. Such is the importance of the Israeli military to the U.S. power elite that U.S. sailors will be sacrificed to cover up crimes of the Israeli government. Last September, two of the survivors of the Liberty spoke in New Haven, Connecticut. One was Ernie Gallo, who was a communications technician aboard the Liberty. After leaving the Navy, he had a 29-year career with the Central Intelligence Agency. The other was Richard Rocky Sturman, who served as a radio man on the Liberty, and after leaving the Navy had a career in various aspects of telecommunications. We'll present to you tonight portions of their talk.
The National Security Agency, NSA, has cleared personnel in all three services identified as security groups. The naval security groups were identified as communication technicians, CTs. Secrecy and clearances are an absolute necessity. CTs were never permitted to discuss their activities even with the remainder of the crew. Their skills included electronic repair, cryptographic repair, signal specialists with Morse code skills, linguists, communicators, and yeomen. There are over 100 CTs on board the Liberty. The USS Liberty, AGTR-5, was controlled primarily by the NSA. The ship was a World War II Victory cargo ship, was one of the most advanced intelligence ships of the line. The USS Liberty had traditional American markings on her bow, GTR-5, as some of these pictures show, and on her stern, the back end of the ship, USS Liberty, big letters, and flying a large American flag. Please remember that. As far as the view of the ship, it was so unmistakable. It was antennas of all sorts from stem to stern. Long wire, whips, Yagis, conical, I forget the names of them, dishes. We had a huge 16-foot dish that pointed skyward when not in use on a pedestal. If you missed that antenna, you had to be blind. CT intercept area within the ship was approximately amidships, below the main deck, and an enclosed and denied area to the remainder of crew. And that's another important point that I want to emphasize. We were like a sealed area that normally no one could walk through, passageways, or it was a contained area, sealed off from the rest of the ship, with only one door and an emergency hatch. Okay? The CTs on board the ship were required never to talk about what we did.
As a radioman aboard the United States ship Liberty, prior to and after that duty, I was cleared in some of the aspects that these gentlemen perform below decks, but not to the high degree of security. We would turn around and we would associate with them. I actually lived in the same berthing quarters with them, and we'd sit and play cards, but hey, what'd you do? Nothing.
And he snores.
You couldn't get a word out of these guys as to what was going on down in the spaces. I was walking past the hatch, the door he was talking about, and that's all it is. It's just from here to the table was a wall, and then there was a hatch that went downstairs. That's all you saw. And you could not get a word out of them what was down there other than a bowling alley and a swimming pool. As a radioman in support of the USS Liberty, I'd set up the transmitters on a frequency that they requested. I made sure the transmitter was operating in 100% efficiency at all times. We made sure the antennas, we made sure all the couplings to the antennas were operational, because this was 24/7, 365 operations with these gentlemen. The Trescom antenna that he's talking about is 16 feet wide, 32 feet high, on top of the pedestal, a satellite dish antenna, which was used to bounce signals off the moon back to the United States in high-speed communications. We took care of that. Boy, it gets to you.
Our orders located us in an operating area off of Port Said, Egypt. We arrived off the coast of Sinai June 7th, 1967, and the weather was beautiful, sunny day with a light breeze. During our journey, we became aware of the serious trouble that was brewing between the Arabs and Israel. As a matter of fact, we received word that a war started on June 5th. Israel had completely wiped out the air forces of Egypt, Jordan, and Syria. Our approach to Port Said had us sailing parallel to the Sinai Peninsula, which now Israel occupied. Our skipper, Commander William McGonigal, was concerned about the situation and had our forward 50 caliber gun mounts constantly manned, and they wore combat helmets and flak jackets. In addition, we observed darkened ship at night, which very, very unusual. This was, it all made us, I think, a bit nervous. He sent a message to Vice Admiral Martin in London and requested a destroyer escort. We were advised that since we were flying an American flag ensign and sailing in international waters, no one would dare attack us. Let me continue?
Yes, please.
Okay. So June 8th, 1967, in the morning. For me, it was business as usual, electronic repair and general quarter drills. I was assigned to Radio Research Room 2 within the CT area. This room was both my repair responsibility and my general quarters location. General quarters is a term that the Navy uses to cause people to go to certain locations when there's an emergency or what's the word I'm looking for? A unique situation, battle situation. And it was kind of nice to have both my normal repair area that I normally worked and my general quarters position at the same location.